Princess Hana walked slowly through the crystal corridors of the Valerian palace. Her long silver hair moved gently in the artificial breeze that kept the palace cool. She loved these quiet morning walks before the chaos of royal duties began. Today felt different, though. The air seemed heavy with worry. Her father's voice echoed through the communication crystal near her ear. "Hana, come to the throne room immediately. We have important matters to discuss." Emperor Taemon's voice carried a weight that made Hana's heart sink. She had heard that tone before, usually when bad news was coming. She quickened her pace, her soft shoes making no sound on the polished floor. The throne room was filled with advisors and military officers. General Nari stood at attention near the massive viewing screen that showed star maps of their galaxy. Advisor Minho looked pale and nervous, constantly checking his datapad. The atmosphere felt like a storm was coming. "Sit down, my daughter," Emperor Taemon said from his crystal throne. His face showed the stress of recent weeks. Dark circles under his eyes told the story of sleepless nights spent planning their defense against the approaching enemy. Hana took her place on the smaller throne beside her father. "What is happening, father? Why does everyone look so worried?" The Emperor activated the viewing screen. Red dots showed the movement of the Krolex swarm across their galaxy. The alien insects had already consumed 12 star systems, turning planets into breeding grounds for their endless armies. The red dots were moving closer to Valerian space. "The Krolex will reach our outer colonies in 30 days, General Nari reported. "Our energy weapons barely scratch their bioships. Our shields can't stop their acid attacks. We need help and we need it now." Advisor Minho stepped forward, his hands shaking slightly. "There is one option, Your Majesty. The humans have offered an alliance. Their military technology is different from ours. They have defeated Krolex forces before." Hana felt a chill run down her spine. Everyone in the galaxy knew about humans. They were the nightmare species that other races whispered about in dark corners. Stories said they fought wars that lasted for generations, never giving up even when defeat was certain. They were said to smile before killing their enemies and to make weapons out of anything they could find. "What do they want in return?" Hana asked, though she feared she already knew the answer. Emperor Taemon looked at his daughter with sad eyes. "A marriage alliance. Their war leader, Jiho, has agreed to marry you and combine our fleets. It's the only way to save our people." The throne room fell silent. Hana felt like the air had been sucked out of her lungs. Marriage to a human was every alien princess's worst nightmare. Humans were unpredictable predators who saw kindness as weakness. "Father, you can't be serious," Hana whispered. "The stories about humans, about this Jiho, they call him the Crimson Blade. They say he destroyed 3 Krolex dreadnoughts by himself. They say he drives enemy soldiers insane just by looking at them." General Nari nodded grimly. "The reports are accurate, Princess. Jiho led a human strike force against a Krolex breeding world last year. The battle recordings show tactics that make no sense by our standards. Humans ram their ships into enemy vessels on purpose. They board enemy ships even when they're outnumbered 10-1. They fight like they have no fear of death." Advisor Minho pulled up battle footage on the viewing screen. Hana watched in horror as human ships charged straight into Krolex formations. The humans didn't retreat when their shields failed. Instead, they kept fighting with damaged ships, broken weapons, and impossible odds. Somehow, they won. "This is madness," Hana said, standing up from her throne. "You want me to marry one of these monsters?" "They are not monsters, daughter," Emperor Taemon said quietly. "They are survivors, and right now, they are our only hope." The viewing screen changed to show intelligence reports about Jiho. The human warrior was tall for his species, with dark hair and scars on his hands from countless battles. His military record was incredible and terrifying. He had never lost a fight. He had never abandoned his soldiers. He had never shown mercy to enemies who threatened innocent people. "Look at his eyes, Princess," General Nari said, pointing to a recent photograph. "Human warriors have different eyes than other species. They see the world as a place to be protected or conquered. There is no middle ground." Hana stared at the Gao image of Jiho. He didn't look like the monster she had imagined. He looked tired. His face showed the weight of command and the burden of making life and death decisions. But his eyes were sharp and alert, like a predator always ready to strike. The human fleet is already on its way, Advisor Minho reported. Admiral Siak commands 50 warships, all equipped with their strange weapons. They will arrive in 7 days. The marriage ceremony is scheduled for the day after their arrival. 7 days? Hana felt panic rising in her chest. That's not enough time. I need to prepare. I need to understand what I'm agreeing to. There is no time, daughter, Emperor Taman said sadly. The Krolex advanced scouts have been detected at the edge of our system. If we wait any longer, there will be no empire left to save. The weight of responsibility settled on Hana's shoulders, like a heavy blanket. Millions of Valerian lives depended on this alliance. Her personal fears seemed small compared to the survival of her entire species. What do we know about human marriage customs? She asked, trying to sound braver than she felt. Advisor Minho consulted his datapad. Very little, Princess. Humans keep their personal customs secret from other species. We know they form strong bonds with their chosen partners. We know they protect their families with extreme violence. Beyond that, we can only guess, General. Nari added, human males are said to be very possessive of their mates. They don't share power easily. You may find yourself with less freedom than you're used to. Hana closed her eyes and tried to imagine her future, living with a human warrior who could kill with his bare hands, sharing her life with someone from a species that other races feared above all others, having children who would be half human, carrying the genes of the galaxy's most dangerous predators. I will do my duty, she said finally. But I want to meet him before the ceremony. I want to see this Jiho with my own eyes. That can be arranged, Emperor Taman said. But remember, daughter, humans are not like us. They think differently. They feel differently. What seems normal to them might seem terrifying to us. Hana nodded, trying to prepare herself for what was coming. In 7 days, her life would change forever. She would become the bride of humanity's most feared warrior, and together they would face an enemy that consumed entire worlds. She only hoped she would survive long enough to regret her decision. The human fleet arrived exactly when promised. Hana watched from her balcony as 50 dark ships took position around the Valerian home world. The human vessels looked different from any ships she had ever seen. Where Valerian ships were smooth and elegant like crystals, human ships looked like metal predators with weapon ports bristling from every surface. They're not even trying to look peaceful, whispered her lady-in-waiting Sora. Look at those guns. Hana nodded nervously. Each human ship carried enough firepower to level a city. The flagship was twice the size of the largest Valerian vessel, its hull covered in scars from countless battles. This was Admiral Siak's command ship, and somewhere inside was Jiho. The palace servants had been preparing for 3 days. They cleaned every surface twice, arranged flowers in perfect patterns, and practiced the greeting ceremonies until they could perform them without mistakes. Everyone was terrified of offending their human guests. Princess, they're coming, announced Captain Jinwoo of the Palace Guard. His usually steady voice carried a slight tremor. Even the elite guards were nervous about meeting humans face to face. Hana walked to the main reception hall with as much dignity as she could manage. Her formal robes felt heavier than usual, and her crown seemed to press down on her head like a weight of responsibility. Emperor Taman waited at the center of the hall, surrounded by his advisors and the most important nobles of the empire. The massive doors opened with a deep rumble. Admiral Siak entered first, a middle-aged human woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything at once. She wore a dark blue uniform covered with medals and insignia that meant nothing to the Valerians but clearly showed her importance among humans. Behind her came 2 younger humans. One was a woman about Hana's age with kind eyes and a gentle smile. The other was a man who moved with the fluid grace of a trained warrior, but seemed to be studying the architecture rather than looking for threats. Then Jiho entered, and the Anurar Entire hall fell silent. Hana had expected a giant covered in scars and weapons. Instead, she saw a man of average height with calm, dark eyes and hands that moved with controlled precision. He wore a simple black uniform with minimal decoration. The only sign of his military rank was a small silver pin on his collar. What surprised Hana most was how quietly he moved. Despite his reputation as a fierce warrior, Jiho walked across the polished floor without making a sound. His eyes swept the room once, taking in every detail, then focused respectfully on Emperor Taemin. Admiral Siak spoke first, her voice carrying the authority of command. Your Majesty, I present Admiral Jiho, commander of the 3rd Human Fleet, and your daughter's intended husband. Jiho stepped forward and performed what Hana recognized as a human bow. It was different from Valerian customs, shorter and more practical, but it showed genuine respect. Your Majesty, Jiho said in carefully pronounced Valerian, I am honored by your trust and grateful for this alliance. Our peoples will be stronger together. Emperor Taemin returned the bow in human fashion, having been coached by his advisors. Welcome to our home, Admiral Jiho. We hope our cooperation will bring peace to both our species. The formal introductions continued. Jiho introduced his companions, his sister Yuna, who served as a diplomatic attaché, and his tactical advisor Daeyun, who had studied Valerian culture for 2 years in preparation for this meeting. When it came time to meet his bride, Jiho approached Hana with the same calm respect he had shown her father. Princess Hana, he said, offering another bow. I bring you a gift from my homeworld. He reached into a small pouch at his belt and withdrew something wrapped in dark cloth. Every Valerian in the room tensed, expecting a weapon. When Jiho unwrapped the gift, their worst fears seemed confirmed. It was a knife. The blade was beautiful, carved from some kind of white metal and decorated with intricate patterns. The handle was wrapped in dark leather and fit perfectly in a human hand. To Valerian eyes, it looked like a tool designed for killing. Gasps echoed through the hall. Several guards stepped forward instinctively. Advisor Minho looked like he might faint. Jiho seemed confused by their reaction. He held the knife carefully, showing the blade to Hana without pointing it toward anyone. This belonged to my grandmother, he explained. She carried it through the war against the Zephyrian Empire. It's a symbol of protection and loyalty. I want you to have it. General Nari's hand moved to her own weapon. Are you threatening the princess? Threatening? Jiho looked genuinely puzzled. No, General. This is a promise. As long as I live, I will protect Princess Hana with the same dedication my grandmother showed her family. The knife represents my commitment to her safety. Yuna stepped forward to help explain. In human culture, we give weapons to people we love. It means we trust them with our lives and promise to defend theirs. It's the greatest honor we can offer. The Valerians exchanged uncertain glances. Their culture saw weapons as tools of aggression, not symbols of love. The idea of giving a knife as a wedding gift seemed insane. Hana looked at the beautiful blade, trying to understand its meaning. The metal seemed to glow with inner light, and the patterns carved into its surface told stories of battles fought to protect innocent people. Despite her fear, she found herself curious about the traditions that created such an unusual gift. Thank you, she said carefully, accepting the knife. I will treasure it. As the formal ceremonies continued, a young servant named Kyung entered, carrying a tray of ceremonial wine. The poor boy was so nervous about serving humans that his hands shook visibly. As he approached Jiho's group, disaster struck. Kyung tripped over his own feet and spilled the dark red wine across Jiho's uniform. The liquid stained the black fabric and dripped onto the polished floor. The entire hall froze in horror. Everyone expected violence. Stories said that humans responded to insults with immediate aggression. Insults to their honor were answered with blood. Kyung dropped to his knees, trembling with terror. Instead of anger, Jiho's face showed only mild amusement. He looked down at his stained uniform, then at the terrified servant. Well, he said with a slight smile, I guess I needed to change clothes anyway. He knelt down beside Kyung and began helping clean up the spilled wine with his own napkin. "Don't worry about it," he told the shocked servant. "Accidents happen. I've worn worse things than wine." Daeun joined in cleaning up, making jokes about how the wine might improve the taste of their rations. Even Admiral Seuk smiled as she helped Kyung to his feet. The Valerians watched in amazement. They had expected brutality and found kindness. Instead, the humans weren't ignoring the accident or punishing it. They were making the servant feel better about his mistake. "Your people are very polite," Yuna said to Hana. "We appreciate the care you've taken with this ceremony. Human customs are probably different from yours, but we want to respect your traditions." General Nari studied the humans with new interest. "Your reputation suggests you are more aggressive than this." Jiho finished cleaning wine from the floor and stood up. "We fight hard when we need to fight," he said simply. "But we don't waste energy fighting people who aren't our enemies. Kyung isn't trying to hurt anyone. Why would I hurt him?" The logic was simple but alien to Valerian thinking. They had expected humans to be violent all the time, like wild animals that couldn't control their instincts. Instead, the humans seemed to choose when to be dangerous. As the reception continued, Hana observed Jiho more carefully. He spoke quietly with his companions, asked thoughtful questions about Valerian culture, and showed genuine interest in learning their customs. When children from noble families were presented to him, he knelt down to their level and spoke to them as equals. "He's not what I expected," Hana admitted to Sora during a quiet moment. "None of them are," Sora replied. "They're still dangerous, though. Look at how they move. Even when they're being friendly, they're watching everything." Hana noticed it too. The humans were relaxed and polite, but their eyes never stopped moving. They tracked every person who entered the room, noted every exit, and positioned themselves to react quickly to any threat. It wasn't paranoia. It was the automatic awareness of people who had survived countless battles. The reception ended with plans for the wedding ceremony in 3 days. As the humans prepared to return to their ship, Jiho approached Hana one more time. "I know this arrangement isn't what you would have chosen," he said quietly. "I hope we can learn to understand each other." "I hope so too," Hana replied, surprising herself with her honesty. As she watched the human delegation leave, Hana realized her feelings had become more complicated. She was still afraid of Jiho, but now she was curious about him too. The monster from the stories didn't match the man who had cleaned up spilled wine and spoken gently to frightened children. Maybe humans were more complex than anyone had imagined. The alarm started screaming at dawn on the second day. Hana woke to red lights flashing through her window and the sound of running feet in the corridors. She threw on her robe and rushed to the palace command center, where chaos ruled. Krolex. "Scouts, 12 ships, General Nari reported to Emperor Taemin. They came through the outer system while our sensors were focused on the human fleet. They're heading straight for us." The main viewing screen showed enemy vessels unlike anything in the Valerian experience. The Krolex ships looked like living things with organic curves and surfaces that seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat. Dark green and brown colors helped them blend into space, making them hard to track until they were already too close. "Deploy the defense fleet," Emperor Taemin ordered. "All ships, maximum power to weapons and shields." Admiral Seok's voice came through the communication system from her flagship. "Your Majesty, we request permission to assist in the defense." "Granted," the Emperor replied immediately. "Any help you can provide will be welcome." Hana watched as both fleets moved to intercept the Krolex scouts. 20 Valerian ships formed a perfect defensive line, their crystal hulls gleaming as energy weapons powered up. The human ships spread out in what looked like a disorganized formation, each vessel moving independently. "Why aren't they forming battle lines?" Advisor Minho asked. "Human tactical doctrine makes no sense." The first contact between the two fleets and the Krolex scouts surprised everyone. Valerian energy beams struck the enemy ships with perfect accuracy, but the bioorganic hulls absorbed the damage and began adapting. Within minutes, their weapons became completely ineffective. The Krolex are evolving their defenses in real time, reported Captain Jinwoo from the lead Valerian ship. Our weapons can't penetrate their hulls anymore. The Krolex returned fire with acid projectiles that ate through Valerian shields like they weren't even there. 2 ships took critical damage in the first exchange, their crystal armor dissolving under the alien attack. Then the humans entered the battle, and everything changed. Instead of trying to outmaneuver the enemy or find weak points in their defenses, Jiho's ships did something that looked like suicide. They accelerated directly toward the Krolex vessels at maximum speed. What are they doing? Hana gasped. They're going to crash. Ramming speed, Admiral Siak announced calmly over the communication channel. All ships, prepare for impact. The Valerians watched in horror as human ships collided deliberately with Krolex vessels. The crashes should have destroyed both sets of ships, but somehow the human vessels survived while their enemies were torn apart by the impacts. How is that possible? General Nari demanded. Commander Isul, watching from her own ship, provided the answer. Their hulls are different. Look at the design. Those aren't exploration ships or even normal warships. They're built like battering rams. The human vessels were indeed constructed for impact. Heavy armor concentrated at the front, internal systems protected by multiple layers of shielding, and structural supports designed to absorb collision damage. They were ships built by a species that considered ramming a valid tactic. But the ramming attacks were just the beginning. As soon as the collisions ended, human soldiers in armored suits began cutting through the hulls of damaged Krolex ships. They were boarding the enemy vessels while both ships were still spinning from the impact. They're insane, whispered Sora, who had joined Hana in the command center. They're fighting inside ships that might explode at any moment. The tactical displays showed something even more incredible. Jiho wasn't commanding the battle from a safe distance. His personal ship had rammed the largest Krolex vessel, and now he was leading the boarding party personally. Admiral Jiho, report. Your status, Admiral Siak requested. Hull breach secured, proceeding to engine room, came Jiho's voice through the communication system. He sounded calm, as if walking through a hostile alien ship was just another part of his daily routine. The battle recordings showed human soldiers moving through Krolex biocorridors with weapons that seemed primitive compared to Valerian energy beams. They used explosive projectiles, chemical weapons, and even bladed tools for close combat. Their technology looked crude, but it was devastatingly effective. Why are their weapons working when ours failed? Hana asked. Commander Isal had been studying the tactical data. The Krolex can adapt to energy-based attacks, but these humans are using kinetic weapons. Bullets, explosives, physical force. The bioarmor can't evolve fast enough to stop simple metal projectiles traveling at high speed. What amazed the Valerians even more was how the human soldiers worked together. They moved through the enemy ships like a single organism, each person knowing exactly where their teammates were and what they were doing. When one soldier was injured, 2 others immediately covered their position while a medic provided treatment. Target the power core, Jiho's voice commanded. Yuna, take your team through the ventilation system. Dayun, seal the escape pods. Nobody gets away to report our tactics. The coordination was perfect, but what struck Hana most was the tone of command. Jiho wasn't just ordering his soldiers around. He was protecting them, making sure they had the support they needed to survive. Within an hour, all 12 Krolex ships had been destroyed or captured. The human fleet had taken damage, but no ships had been lost. More importantly, they had captured Krolex technology and prisoners for intelligence gathering. How? Emperor Taman asked when the battle was over. Your tactics should have resulted in massive casualties. Ramming attacks are suicide missions. Admiral Siak's image appeared on the viewing screen. Not if you design your ships properly and train your crews for impact operations. We've been fighting the Krolex for 5 years. We learned that you can't beat them with conventional tactics. But your soldiers fought inside damaged ships, General Nari pointed out. The risk was enormous. Risk is part of the job. Jiho's voice joined the conversation. He had returned to his flagship and was cleaning bioacid off his armor. But we calculated the risks carefully. Our equipment is designed for hostile environment operations. Our training prepares us for exactly this kind of fighting. Hana studied the battle damage reports. Human casualties were surprisingly light, considering how dangerous their tactics appeared. 3 injured soldiers, no deaths, minimal ship damage despite the deliberate collisions. "Your people fight like you have no fear of death," she said. "Fear would get us killed," Jiho replied simply. "When you're fighting something like the Kroleks, hesitation means your friends die. We train until the fear goes away." Commander Isul had been analyzing the tactical recordings. "I understand now," she announced. "They're not fearless. They're more afraid of failing their teammates than they are of dying. That's why their coordination is so perfect." The humans had turned fear into a weapon. Instead of being afraid of the enemy, they were afraid of letting each other down. This created a level of unit cohesion that other species found impossible to achieve. "We'll share our tactical analysis with your military," Admiral Sayok offered. "Some of our methods might work with Valerian ships and crews." "We appreciate that," Emperor Taman replied. "But I think it's more than just tactics. Your people fight differently because they think differently." As the fleets regrouped and began repairs, Hana found herself looking at the human ships with new eyes. They were still covered in weapons and built like predator vessels, but now she understood their purpose. They weren't designed to conquer or destroy for the sake of destruction. They were designed to protect. "Princess," Yuna's voice came through a private communication channel. "My brother would like to speak with you if you have time." "Of course," Hana replied, curious about what Jiho wanted to discuss. When the connection opened, Jiho appeared on her personal viewing screen. He had changed into a clean uniform, but she could see exhaustion in his eyes. "I wanted to apologize," he said. "I know today's battle probably made you more afraid of marrying me. I understand if you've changed your mind about the alliance." Hana considered his words carefully. The battle had been terrifying to watch, but not for the reasons she expected. "You weren't fighting like monsters," she said finally. "You were fighting to protect people. That's different." "We fight hard because we care deeply," Jiho confirmed. "When something matters to us, we give everything to protect it. I want you to know that includes you now. You're part of our family, whether you wanted to be or not." The conversation ended, but Hana continued thinking about what she had witnessed. Human warriors weren't the mindless killers from the stories. They were protectors who used their strength to defend the things they loved. For the first time since learning about the marriage arrangement, Hana wasn't sure if she was more afraid of Jiho or afraid for him. Anyone who fought that hard to protect others was bound to face terrible dangers. Maybe being married to a human warrior wasn't about surviving his violence. Maybe it was about living with the constant fear that his courage would get him killed. The palace gardens were quiet in the evening light. Hana often came here to think, walking among the crystal flowers that grew in perfect geometric patterns. Tonight, she wasn't alone. She had heard that Jiho sometimes visited the gardens too, though she had never encountered him there before. She found him in the medical section of the gardens where healing plants grew alongside the decorative ones. He was kneeling beside a strange, dark creature that she recognized with shock as a Krolek soldier. The alien insect was badly wounded, its bioarmor cracked and leaking green fluid. "What are you doing?" Hana asked, startled by the scene. Jiho looked up from his work. He had medical supplies spread around him and was carefully cleaning the creature's wounds. "This one was injured during the boarding action yesterday. The medic stabilized it, but someone needs to monitor its recovery." "Why?" The question came out harsher than Hana intended. "It's our enemy. It would have killed you if it could." "Maybe," Jiho agreed, returning to his work. "But it can't kill anyone right now. It's hurt and scared, and medical care is the right thing to provide." Hana moved closer, studying the wounded Kroleks. Up close, she could see that it was smaller than the others, possibly young by their species standards. Its large compound eyes tracked her movement with obvious fear. "Aren't you afraid it might attack you?" Jiho shook his head. "It's too weak to be dangerous, and even if it wasn't, attacking me wouldn't help it survive. Kroleks are aggressive, but they're not stupid." As if to prove his point, the creature made a soft clicking sound and extended one of its injured limbs toward Jiho. He took it gently and began wrapping it with medical bandages. "I don't understand," Hana said. "Everyone says humans are ruthless killers, but you're taking care of something that tried to kill you." Jiho finished with the bandage and sat back. "Strength isn't about destroying everything you can destroy. It's about knowing when destruction is necessary and when mercy is stronger." "How do you know the difference?" "Experience," Jiho replied simply, "and thinking about what kind of person you want to be." Over the next few days, Hana found herself seeking out conversations with the human delegation. Yuna was particularly helpful in explaining human culture, sharing stories that gave Hana a different perspective on her brother and his people. "Humans bond very deeply with people we care about," Yuna explained as they walked through the palace library. "When we choose someone as family, we protect them with everything we have. That's where our reputation comes from." "But the stories say humans are violent even with each other," Hana pointed out. Yuna laughed. "We argue a lot, that's true. But arguing isn't the same as violence. We fight with words when we disagree, and we fight with weapons when someone threatens our family. There's a big difference." "What about the stories of human ruthlessness in battle?" "Those are probably true," Yuna admitted, "but you have to understand why. When humans fight, we're not usually fighting for conquest or resources. We're fighting because someone is trying to hurt people we love. That makes us very motivated." Hana was beginning to see the pattern. Human behavior that seemed insane to other species made sense when viewed as protective instincts taken to extremes. Elder Wook of the Valerian Council wasn't convinced by these explanations. The old advisor had lived through 3 wars and considered himself an expert on military psychology. "Princess, you're being deceived by their friendly behavior," he warned during a private meeting. "Predators are often charming before they attack. These humans are simply better at disguising their true nature." To prove his point, Elder Wook arranged for Hana to observe Jiho interrogating the Krolex prisoners. If humans were truly as gentle as they claimed, their methods of gathering intelligence would reveal their real character. The interrogation room was in the lower levels of the palace, a plain chamber with basic furniture and recording equipment. Hana watched from an observation room where she could see and hear everything without being noticed. Jiho entered with 2 guards and a translator device. The Krolex prisoner was the largest of the captured soldiers, its bioarmor scarred from many battles. When it saw Jiho, its mandibles clicked in what Hana assumed was either anger or fear. What followed surprised her completely. Jiho didn't use torture or physical threats. Instead, he sat down across from the creature and began asking questions in a calm, professional voice. When the Krolex refused to answer, Jiho didn't become angry. He simply waited and asked different questions. "Your people are planning something bigger than a scouting mission," Jiho said. "We both know that. The question is whether you care more about your mission or about your soldiers who are still out there." The Krolex made harsh chittering sounds that the translator rendered as insults and threats. "I understand you don't trust me," Jiho continued. "But consider this. Your scouts failed. Your commanders don't know what happened to them. They're going to send more scouts to investigate, and those soldiers are going to die too unless they know what they're facing." The interrogation continued for 2 hours. Jiho never raised his voice or made threats. Instead, he used logic and psychology, slowly convincing the prisoner that cooperation would save Krolex lives rather than betray their mission. "You're a veteran," Jiho observed, studying the creature's scars. "You've seen soldiers die because commanders made decisions without good information. Do you want that to happen to more of your people?" By the end of the session, the Krolex had provided detailed information about the main invasion fleet, including numbers, ship types, and planned attack routes. It had cooperated not because it was afraid of Jiho, but because Jiho had convinced it that sharing information was the right thing to do. "How did you do that?" Hana asked when Jiho emerged from the interrogation room. "Understanding," he replied. "Krolex soldiers are loyal to their swarm, but they also care about individual members of their unit. I showed it that helping us would protect its fellow soldiers." "That was manipulation," Elder Wook pointed out. "You used its emotions against it." "Yes," Jiho agreed without shame. "But I didn't lie to it. The information it provided will help us end this war faster, which means fewer casualties on both sides. Sometimes manipulation is kinder than torture. Hana realized that this was what made humans so effective and so frightening. They understood how other beings thought and felt, and they used that understanding to achieve their goals. The difference between a human protector and a human enemy wasn't their methods. It was whose side they were on. Later that evening, Hana found Yuna in the diplomatic quarters, reading reports on her personal communication device. "Can I ask you something personal?" Hana said. "Of course. Are you afraid of your brother?" Yuna looked surprised by the question. "Afraid? No, never. Jiho has never hurt anyone who didn't deserve it. He spent his whole life protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. But he's so controlled, so precise. Even when he's being kind, it feels like he's choosing to be kind rather than just being naturally gentle." "That's exactly right," Yuna said with a smile. "Jiho chooses his actions based on what's right, not what's easy or natural. That's what makes him a good person and a good leader. What if he chose differently someday?" The question hung in the air between them. Yuna was quiet for a long moment. The alarm that woke the palace this time was different from the scout attack. This was the deep, constant tone that meant total war was coming. Hana ran to the command center, still wearing her sleeping clothes, her heart pounding with fear that had nothing to do with the early morning chaos. The main viewing screen showed a sight that made everyone in the room fall silent. Hundreds of Krolex ships were emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. Not scouts this time, but a full invasion fleet complete with breeding ships, support vessels, and massive bio-dreadnoughts that could consume entire planets. "How many?" Emperor Taman asked, his voice steady despite the magnitude of the threat. 437 enemy vessels confirmed, reported General Nari. "More are still arriving. This is the largest Krolex force ever assembled." Advisor Minho was checking and rechecking his calculations. "Our combined fleet has 73 ships. Even with human technology, the odds are impossible." Admiral Siok's image appeared on the communication screen. She looked tired but determined. "Your Majesty, we need to discuss strategy immediately. Traditional defensive tactics won't work against a force this size." "What do you recommend?" The Emperor asked. "A joint counterattack using both human and Valerian capabilities," Admiral Siok replied. "But it will require perfect coordination between our fleets. One mistake and we all die." Jiho's voice joined the conversation from his flagship. "The plan will work, but we need someone who understands both tactical systems to coordinate the attack. Someone both fleets will trust completely." Hana realized what he was suggesting before anyone else spoke. "You want me to command the joint operation. You're the only person both species will follow without question," Jiho confirmed. "Your people trust you completely, and you're about to become part of our family. The coordination has to be perfect, and trust is the only way to achieve that." The idea was terrifying. Hana had studied military theory as part of her royal education, but she had never commanded anything larger than a palace guard unit. Now they wanted her to coordinate the most complex battle in galactic history. "I don't know enough about human tactics," she protested. "You'll have help," Admiral Siok assured her. "Jiho will handle the human fleet movements. You'll coordinate the overall strategy and make sure both fleets work together instead of fighting separate battles." Emperor Taman looked at his daughter with pride and worry. "The choice is yours, Hana, but if you accept this responsibility, you'll be risking your life at the center of the battle." Hana thought about everything she had learned about humans over the past week. Their willingness to sacrifice themselves for people they cared about. Their refusal to abandon their allies even when victory seemed impossible. Their belief that some things were worth any risk to protect. "I'll do it," she said. "But I want to command from Jiho's flagship. If we're going to trust each other completely, we need to be in the same place." The next 6 hours were spent in frantic preparation. The Krolex fleet was moving slowly through the outer system, consuming everything in their path to fuel their bioships. Asteroid mining stations disappeared into their feeding ships. Gas collection facilities were stripped down to raw materials. Hana found herself on the bridge of Jiho's flagship, surrounded by human technology she barely understood, and crew members, who treated her with the same respect they showed their own admiral. The bridge was smaller than Valerian command centers but felt more alive, with constant communication between different stations and displays showing real-time updates from every ship in the fleet. The key is timing, Jiho explained, showing her the battle plan on a three-dimensional display. Valerian ships will use their speed and maneuverability to draw Krolek's attention. While they're distracted, human ships will ram their heavy vessels and board their command centers. What if the Kroleks adapt to our tactics like they did before? They will, Jiho said calmly. That's why we need to keep changing our approach throughout the battle. No plan survives contact with the enemy, so we plan to improvise. Commander Isol's voice came through the communication system from her Valerian ship. Princess, we're ready to begin the attack run. Valerian fleet standing by for your orders. Hana took a deep breath and activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships, this is Princess Hana. Today we fight not just for our own species, but for every free being in this galaxy. The Kroleks want to turn us all into food for their swarm. We're going to show them that some prey bites back. The battle began with Valerian ships streaking toward the enemy formation at maximum speed. Their crystal hulls gleamed like stars as they weaved between Krolek's vessels, drawing fire and creating chaos in the enemy ranks. Now, Hana ordered. Human ships launched from hidden positions among the asteroids, accelerating to ramming speed, while the Kroleks were distracted by the Valerian attack. The coordination was perfect. Every human ship hit its target, while Valerian vessels provided cover fire. But the Kroleks learned quickly. Within minutes, they had adapted their formation to counter the ram attacks. Bioshields began deflecting human vessels instead of being penetrated by them. They're adapting faster than we expected, Jiho reported. We need a new approach. Hana studied the battle display, watching how both fleets moved and how the enemy responded. Suddenly, she saw something that neither human nor Valerian tactical doctrine would have noticed. The big ships in the center, she said. They're not fighting, they're coordinating the adaptation process. If we take them out, the rest of the fleet won't be able to change tactics so quickly. Those are the most heavily defended ships in their formation, Admiral Sock pointed out. Getting to them would require going through their entire fleet. Not, if we don't try to fight our way through, Hana said, her mind racing. Jiho, can your ship survive a collision with one of those command vessels? Probably not, he admitted. They're too big and too well armored. What if they weren't expecting the collision? What if they thought you were retreating? Hana's plan was incredibly risky. Human ships would pretend to withdraw from the battle, making the Kroleks think their ram tactics had failed. While the enemy fleet relaxed their defensive formation, the human ships would reverse course and attack the command vessels at full speed. It's suicide, Dayun said bluntly. If the timing is off by even a few seconds, we'll hit their shields at full power. If we don't try something this desperate, we lose anyway, Jiho replied. Hana, I trust your judgment. Give us the timing. The next few minutes were the longest of Hana's life. She watched human ships pull back from the battle while Valerian vessels continued their attacks. The Kroleks formation began to spread out, thinking the human threat was diminishing. Wait, Hana said as human commanders requested permission to attack. Not yet. Let them get more confident. The Kroleks command ships moved forward to better coordinate their fleet, exposing themselves as they focused on the Valerian attacks. Now, Hana ordered. Human ships reversed course and accelerated to maximum speed. The surprised Kroleks tried to reform their defenses, but it was too late. Jiho's flagship led the charge straight into the largest command vessel, followed by 20 other human ships hitting priority targets. The collision threw everyone on the bridge to the floor. Emergency lighting activated as main power flickered. Hana could hear the sound of hull breaches being sealed by emergency systems. Boarding parties away, Jiho announced, leading his soldiers toward the enemy ship. Hana, keep coordinating the fleet. Don't wait for us. As human soldiers fought through Krolek's biocorridors, Hana continued directing the battle from the damaged bridge. With their command ships under attack, the enemy fleet began making random, uncoordinated decisions. Valerian ships exploited the confusion, picking off isolated enemy vessels. Jiho, report. Admiral Siok requested. Command center secured, came Jiho's voice over the communication system. Yuna's team has control of their fleet coordination systems. We can disrupt their entire formation. Do it. The effect was immediate. Krolex ships began attacking each other as their communication systems received conflicting orders. Some vessels tried to retreat while others continued attacking, creating massive confusion in their ranks. But victory came with a terrible cost. A Krolex bioweapon ship that had been heading for the Valerian civilian evacuation fleet suddenly changed course toward the planet's surface. If it reached the atmosphere, its bioweapons would kill billions of innocent people. I can intercept it, Jiho announced, but my ship is too damaged to survive the collision. Hana felt her heart stop. Jiho was volunteering for a suicide mission to save her people. There has to be another way, she said desperately. There isn't. Time, Jiho replied. Take care of my crew, Hana. They're your family now, too. As his ship moved to intercept the bioweapon vessel, Hana realized something that surprised her. She wasn't afraid of losing her human warrior anymore. She was afraid of losing the man she had come to understand and respect. Jiho, wait, she called over the communication system. I love you. The words surprised her as much as they seemed to surprise him. She hadn't planned to say them, but watching him sacrifice himself for her people made her realize they were true. I love you too, he replied. That's why I have to do this. The collision between Jiho's flagship and the bioweapon ship